Emily.
And I'm Jennifer.
Just kidding, I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Emily.
And we are the team behind Porcelynne. And today we are doing the sew along for view B of the new Brenda brief. I'll show you a quick view. And why don't you show it on the table? So this we can kind of show you a little bit more about what we have. We have fold over elastic on the legs and the waistline. And we do have lace on the side panel that wraps around to the back. This is a high-waisted brief, so this does come up high on the waist. You do need to apply the fold over elastic before you do the lace. So when you're watching this video, definitely pay special attention to what we do at these points when we attach the lace to the fold over elastic. This part can be very, very tricky, and I don't want to completely lose you on this design. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the video. Make sure to subscribe so you can get all future videos, but also comment below if you have any questions regarding what I have shown you. For this pattern, we're actually using the lace edge on this bottom piece, and I want to get both of my patterns on here, so I'm going to try and get this as close as I can and kind of use that lace edge. Now, we see we have a little notch here on both ends, and that's actually going to help us line some stuff up when we're sewing. So I would say if you have kind of like this little decorative edge, let that sit just below where that line is. I'm going to hit this, and actually, well, so what we could do is we can do it and then reverse it and actually line up the pattern. Or, because I know that this piece is big enough, I'm going to do them both at the same time, so I don't have to get up, go move my pattern or anything. So we can set that here and here, and actually I might set that here since we don't have to cut that bottom bit. Okay, I have changed my blade since view A. So this is view B. We're going to see how well this blade cuts, and it could be that I just don't know how to do it. So feel free to critique me and tell me what my skills are terrible and what I should be doing that's different. So here we have that little notch again. I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way. There's no pets on the table, no children on the table, and no distractions. There we go. Perfect. My blade is definitely a blade issue. So now we have the right and the left piece that I'm going to use for this. And you know, the pattern is not, it's not mirrored right now, but it's on the other side. It's not in the front of the body. So I am fine with that. So I'm going to set that to the side. And then I'm going to get my fabric out that I'll be using. And I'm going to actually, see, I got a big damage spot. I'm going to go move it to the front. Now the front is the same for both view A and B. Now I have all of my pieces cut out for view B. So now I'm ready to start pinning together view B. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach the crotch and the lining to the self. So let me set this aside. I'm going to fold this so the right sides are facing each other. I'm just going to put just 2 pins in there right now. We're going to take and flip this over. So then we can also, so we can sandwich this, sandwich the front in between the 2 pieces. You're going to put the right side facing down towards the body, and that way when you flip it right side out, it will be in the correct orientation. Okay, I'm going to pull this around. So I'm looking at the back portion of this. And I want to take and line up so which is my right side, I think that is the right side facing down. Actually, this stuff is really hard to tell. And it really doesn't really matter when it's so close to being the same. So I made all the seam allowances on this pretty square, so it should make it a little bit easier to line everything up. I'm then going to take and kind of roll my front and back into the middle, creating a burrito. And then I'm going to pin all 3 layers together, then sandwiching the back in between these 2 layers. I always pin at the ends and then pin to the middle. Just 2 extra pins. And I'm about ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and take these over to the sewing machine so I can get these parts sewn before I attach any laces or elastics. Okay, so whenever I'm working with this really flimsy material, I like to say I like the flimsy stuff to be more on the top. That way you don't accidentally get something turning over underneath. So my cotton for the lining is actually thicker, so I know that's not going to move anywhere. So I've made sure I've got my blade up, because I always want to start with my blade up so I can get as far back as I can. And the seam allowance here is 3/8 of an inch on both ends. So we can begin trimming off what is not necessary. And you can sew this with a straight stitch machine as well. You just want to make sure that you pretty much will reinforce it, so when you're wearing it, you're not going to snap your threads, because once you put everything together, it's going to be a lot harder to repair it. But with the overlock machine, I just cut off enough that it has that finished stitch right at that 3/8 of an inch. Now we have on the back, and so you can see I'm kind of shaking the fabric so it's out of the way. And this one, get this in here, and I'm actually going to use my pin to kind of help guide everything in here, because this pink is a little flimsy and likes to move around. So I'm using it to kind of hold it in place as I get started. Once I've got it started, I can move the pin. Okay, so I have these 2 seams finished. We will meet back at the table and work on the next step. Okay, here is my pink. And this is a way you can also just kind of double check and make sure that everything is correct. So the next thing we're actually going to do is we're going to pin these pieces together so they're nice and flat. And I can see that things kind of shifted a little bit. So I want to really kind of clean this up a little bit. Now trimming it down means that I'm going to lose a little bit of coverage, but it's not going to be too terrible. Okay, so over here I'm going to trim down some of the white. Just right back here. I'm going to look at this side. Okay, over here we have some pink, so I'm going to trim down some of this pink here, just because I think it's going to be a little bit too far away from where the fold over elastic is going to be. Okay, and then we can just kind of clip these points because we don't want that in the way. We can also clip that point right there. Okay, so the next thing we're actually going to be doing is applying our fold over elastic. So it's going to be slightly different and it's a little tricky on how we're going to sew this point right here. So we're going to be folding our elastic. This stuff is really great. I mean, you can iron it in half so you can get kind of a good crease going down it. This one is not one I usually carry. This one is just from my stash. But what we want to do is we want to take in, if you can see what I'm doing, I'm kind of taking that notch area and I'm going to be folding this over that notch. I'm going to pin this so you can kind of see where it is, step away. So you can see it's a little bit right before. And so we're going to kind of have this little notch kind of coming out right here. And we want to fold the elastic over the edge. So then we're going to take and we're going to fold that elastic over and all the way around, and then we're going to come back here and kind of do the same thing. So we end up kind of taking that peak, that little point, and we're just going to sew off the end. Now, the reason why I didn't change the patterns to do the fold over elastic, because this is really the easiest way to do this, and trust me, because I've tried altering this pattern many different ways, and this was the only way that I successfully was able to do this. So for this, we're actually going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this on with a zigzag stitch. Now you can certainly use a cover stitch if you want. You can also apply this in 2 runs, so you can actually take and stitch this down on one side, so you've got the back side, zigzag on one side, and then fold it over, and then you can do another row of zigzags. So for this one, I'm just going to take this over and we are going to zigzag together. So I'm going to show you again what I did when I pinned it in there. Is we have this notch, and the notch, we're going to be putting the fold over elastic over it. So the notch is going to kind of sit funny like this, and then we're going to get fold over elastic over that. So I'm only going to get the 1 pin in there and get my machine all set up. So I'm just going to try and get it started. Once it's in the machine, then I'm going to take and properly fold my fold over elastic over the edge. And then when we're up here, I'm going to take this pin out. Now you can pull your elastics just ever so slightly. If you have pre-washed your elastics, I wouldn't though, because I do notice that many fold over elastics do shrink after washing. So if you're using any of my fold over elastics, I do believe they all shrink. So this one is actually not one of mine. This was one from my stash, and I've actually tested, and this one does not shrink. So for this one, I can actually pull the elastic a little bit. Now it doesn't matter if you pull it a little bit, it's really whatever you're comfortable with. You don't want it real tight, but if you're one of those people who always feels like your underwear are getting ready to fall off of you, then definitely kind of give yourself a little tug. Okay, so now I'm kind of at the other end with the notch. I'm going to kind of straighten out that notch, and we're going to stitch right over that. So now it also starts sewing on the top side, on this side as well. So here we're actually starting at the back. And so I'm going to try and do the same thing. So I'm going to get it pinned to get it started. And actually we have a little notch right there. So we just want to extend it a little bit past where that little notch is in the back. Pins the needle down, again sewing, and then I can work on taking my other pins out. If this is your first time sewing fold over elastic, please do a sample on some scraps, and not just a straight piece of scrap, like cut a scrap into a curve. So you have the ability to practice going around a curve. So you can see how your elastic behaves. Some elastic will stretch out as you're sewing it. Especially on the home machines, I've discovered that I have more issues with it stretching out on the home machines than I do on the industrial machine. Okay, I'm back over to where that notch is, so I'm just going to stitch right past that. Okay. Okay, so I've got this portion finished. Now this one just ready for my lace. Okay, so now for this one, we can take and we can actually attach our lace. So we can, this lace goes here, and this lace goes over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this, so flip this over, so the little kind of nook things in the back. And I'm going to line this up straight kind of from this pink to the edge of the fold over elastic. Now there might be a little piece of fold over elastic sticking out over here, and that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to stitch. We want to sew these two pieces together. Okay, now I got most of that. We do have a sharp curve over here, so I'm going to take and I'm going to get these pieces together. So kind of get my end pinned. And then flip it so I'm looking at the concave piece up and doing my best to kind of stretch it around for the shape. Okay, so we got that piece on there. Now it's time to get this piece. So again, this is going to be right here. We're going to line this up. So this one has a bigger piece that's hanging off. So what I'm going to do is, see, I'm lining the edge of this, going straight kind of all the way to the edge of the fold over elastic. Then I'm going to put a couple pins in this way. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to attach these. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to go to the straight stitch machine and I'm going to reinforce this point right here where the elastic hits this point. So I'm going to do that with the straight stitch and then I can go to the overlock. We just want to make sure we have a nice clean finish right there. Okay, so I am going to stitch this corner, and I'm coming from the angle of that back or of that seam. Okay, and now I'm ready to go to the overlock machine and finish that stitch. Okay, so normally I would start with the pink side up, but because we did the securing stitch over here, I'm actually going to start with that secured stitch because I know that's not going anywhere, and I'm too afraid that stuff will move how I don't want it to move. Almost got my finger in that one. Okay, so how I'm going to actually attach the fold over elastic at the waistline is I'm actually not going to do it in the round. I'm actually going to do things a little different, and because of that I'm going to attach one side of this back seam. So just how we had things lined up on the front, I'm going to take and I'm going to line this up on the back. And we have that pin there. They can kind of help be a guide. You don't have to absolutely use that because I know my pin's moved around a bit. I'm going to start, I pinned at the top and pinned at the bottom, and then I'm just going to pin kind of in between. And this will give me a clean finish on this whole side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach the fold over so there's an opening on one side, so then we can just sew that other seam together and clean finish it. Okay, so I'm going to do this here, but I'm going to be really careful because I should be stitching this with a straight stitch because I want this to end perfectly. I am not. I'm going to be risking it. So we're crossing my fingers that I'm doing this correctly, making sure that nothing moves out of place. Coming down here to the end, just be careful that we try and get that lace stretched where it's supposed to be. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to end up doing over here is I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to stitch this down to kind of reinforce that. We can do that at the very end once we've got both sides attached. So right here we've got this already, already, that we're just going to sew the elastic around and then finish it up. Okay, I'm going to clip this up here. And I'm going to start on this back piece with my elastic folded over the edge. And so here is an example where I actually want to start sewing my elastic first, and then I'm going to squeeze in it, and this also allows me to make sure I got the right stitch, which I don't. Okay, so get my stitch going on that elastic, and then we can slide the fabric in and continue around the whole piece. And so here you can pull your elastic if you wish. The last step will be the last couple steps. Okay, so we have the front. We'll need to attach this piece in the back. So flipping this right side out. Pin these two together so they end right at the same point. And then the bottoms, we're also going to have to be very, very careful with how we line this up. Okay, so before I go to the overlock machine, I'm actually going to stitch here at this machine. I actually want to stitch this point together so this ends perfectly, and this point right here ends perfectly. And then we can go and overlock it. And so I'm just stitching really right at the top, so like maybe a half an inch, maybe not even half an inch. Now I can just go and finish this up at the overlock machine. There will be one more finishing stitch that I'm going to do, which is to kind of clean finish all of these places so they don't unravel on us. Okay. So you can see we just need to kind of finish this piece up here, and then these pieces down here on the bottom, and then this will be completely done. Now there's only really two things left to do, and that is to secure kind of my seams here where the fold over elastic comes together to make sure that they don't kind of come undone. So I'm going to start over here. Now what we can do is I like to kind of take and pull that fold over. I like to take and pull those threads that are right here and then kind of wrap it up in the seam, kind of right in the seam. And then we're going to fold this over. And then I'm going to stitch it down right here, kind of just to just to a reinforcement stitch right here. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to secure that thread underneath it, but it's also going to make sure that we're not clipping at the end, so nothing's going to come unraveled. So I'm just going to do forward and backwards, just a couple little stitches there. Clip away, and now that is nice and secured. Now I can work on, I've actually got 4 places to do it around the legs, so each place where the elastic is. So I'm going to take and fold that thread from both the overlock and any other threads that are in there. Kind of fold them in, so I'm hiding them in the stitch. Clip my lace. I can always go back and clip out kind of the extra thread that's hanging here once we've got that secured in there. Okay, now we have this piece right here. So I'm going to take and fold that kind of in between, kind of where I'm going to be sewing. One more here on the leg area. And it does look like it's having a hard time going through the machine, but you can always shift it around, and so when you're sewing it, you can kind of put it in this way. So kind of start here and then go forward, so it has a little bit more to grip on. So, okay, let's see. I'll clip up those threads in a little bit. So now we just really need to finish up this, so we can fold this over. And kind of can go to either direction. I'm going to fold that kind of under and then do a stitch down right here, but I'm going to do it on this side. Oh, I clipped my fabric. How did I don't know how I did that. And my machine's not wanting to go through it. Start from this direction. Works from that direction. Now I got a little nick in my fabric. I may not have been paying attention. I got 2 little nicks there. But this, after I clip all my threads, this one is officially done.